Hey Chicas, welcome to Coding for Chicks! Today we're going to be creating a lottery machine, like so much fun. So we're going to create 5 random numbers and then we pick our own 5 numbers and maybe we actually win something. Like, oh my god, are you feeling lucky? I'm definitely feeling lucky. But the first thing we need to learn about is how to generate a random number, and this we haven't done before. To do that, I'm going to import a random function from the random module. So we write from random, which is the name of the module. We're going to import the function randint, and that is a function that creates a random integer. Now to use our function, we just write randint and add our parentheses since it's a function. And now as a parameter, we're going to use an interval, which means, for example, I'm going to write 1,50, and that means my interval is going to be between 1 and 50. So my random number will thus be, it can be 1, it can be 50, and it can be anything in between. This is not enough, we need something more. I'm going to add a list for the lottery numbers. L for list and lottery. I'm just keeping the random integer right there so I can use it later. One list isn't enough, we also need a list for our numbers, because we were also going to choose some numbers, weren't we? Now we have one for the random numbers and one for ours. I'm going to be using the while loop to create my lottery numbers. So to do that, I need to know how many lottery numbers I want. And I want 5. So I start by checking the length of the lottery number list, the one with the random numbers. And while it doesn't contain 5 numbers, I'm going to loop through my while loop. This is where my random integer generator comes in handy. Come here, little man. I'm gonna grab him and throw him in here. But I kind of want to put the random integer into some variable. So I'm gonna create a variable, integer new number, start by declaring it as 0. And then I use it again in here. New number, and my random integer is now going to be thrown into this new variable. So without thinking, I'm just going to get my list of lottery numbers and add this new number. But wait, if I do this 5 times, I just generate a random number and I put it in the list. What happens if I get the same random number twice? I think that might be a problem we have to solve. To prevent that, I'm going to be using an if statement. And I'm going to check if the number is in my list. So if the new number that I just generated is not in the list, then I can append it. If it's in the list, I want to loop again. Alrighty then, we've got our list of lottery numbers. So I'm just going to steal the whole thing and copy and paste. The reason is I can now wiggle it around and fix it to fit my next project. And this is going to save me some time. It's a little trick from me programmer to you programmer. Now obviously we're not going to be using the same list. We're not going to be using our numbers. So we just change it to my number. And we do it right here as well. My number, and right here as well. You could always leave it like this and just use the random generator to create your numbers as well. But I would rather like to create my own numbers. So I'm going to use the raw input to do that. And this is the same function as we did use before. And in this case, we'll write, please write your number between 1 and 50. So this is what the user is going to be seeing. And he's then going to be writing his number, which is going to be put into the new number. That's then going to go into the list of my numbers. And until that list has 5 numbers, it's going to loop. Okay, so I can't add the same number twice, just as in the other loop. But what if I actually ignore this interval and just add 100 or 1000 or 1 billion, gillion, zillion? What happens then? I think that's going to be a bit of a problem. So maybe we should add something in here. So I'm going to be checking if the number has been added, And now I want to check if it's within this range. So to do that, I would add and, wouldn't I? I'm sure you know this better than me by now. I'm going to be writing some parentheses here, since it will structure my code and make it easier to read. And now it's the name of the variable, and then if the variable is below or equal to 50. So it's going to be up to 50, but what is my region below? That's going to be if my variable is above, and I'll be putting 0 here. Since it can't be 0, it has to be above 0. It's going to be either 1 or above. So from 1 to 50, and that sounds about right. Now for something completely different. We're going to be creating a for loop, the one we just learned how to use. And we're going to be looping through our random lottery number list, which is the longest word in the history of the English language. But anyways, so for each turn through the loop, we're going to pick one number, and after another, we're going to finish the 5 numbers in the list. Let's say I would just start comparing right here. Let's say if the number is the same as the one in my list, and I would just pick one of those, let's say the first one, and then I'm going to do something. But the problem is I would be going through all the numbers in the random lottery guy, but I would just be going through one in my list. So that's not going to work, is it? In order to compare everything in the random guy to everything in my guy, I would actually need another for loop. I know this is going to sound completely insane, but trust me, this is going to be extremely amazing. Let's just erase this, and then we write our for loop. So I'm going to be using a different name for my variable here than I am in the other for loop, because if I don't, my shell is going to get confused when I run it. And then my number is in my numbers. So this is again going to be the name of the list. To explain this a little bit better, I start, for example, with item number 0 in the L lottery list, and then I maintain 0 while I loop through all the numbers in the L my numbers list. So if I write it out for you, I would start by using 0 in the L lottery, and in the L my numbers it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I would increment by 1 in the L lottery and start by 1. And again, loop through everything here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you understand. Now let's complete the comparison. So if number is equals to my number, then I'm going to do something. What am I going to do? I want to count the numbers I have correct. So I would like to add a variable. And I'm going to call that variable I write numbers and start by 0 because I don't have anything to begin with. And if I have a right number, then write numbers is going to be incremented by 1. But it kind of has to be I write numbers to work, so let's fix that. For the finale, I would like to write out how many numbers I have correct. So I'm going to write you have plus I write numbers, which is the name of my variable, as you know, and write numbers. But the problem is that this is a string and this is an integer. And as we know, we're just going to write str in front of it to convert it to a string. I would also like to know what the lottery numbers were. So I'm going to do print the lottery numbers were, and since I'm just going to print the list out without anything, I'm just going to do print lottery. And voila, there we have it. Shall we give it a spin? Ops daisies! I have forgotten to put an S in the name of my list. This is something you would have realized sooner, but as you could see, I wasn't running the program constantly. I was just writing it. But I recommend just running it after everything you write, like after you create a variable or after you create your while loops, just run it and check if you made any mistakes. Okay, so we're running. Please write your number between 1 and 50. So I would choose 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I have 0 right numbers? That's so unfair. Okay, so I should be writing some lucky numbers. So I'm going 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32. What? I have 0 right numbers? I think this game is rigged. As you can see, it would have been smart to add a space here in between, because it's kind of ugly to see my 2 so close to the 50. So this is something you can fix. What you could also do is write out the lottery numbers you chose. And if you're up for some sort of a challenge, you could ask the user if he wants a random generated list or if he wants to write his numbers himself. And then you would have to do the random thing I thought about earlier and somehow handle the input from the user. As always, I recommend that you play around with it. Change the number, change the name of the variable, add something, fix something, or just whatever you like. But the most important thing is to get a feeling for the code and how it works. If you like my video and you're feeling generous, please give me a like. If you would like to know when my next video is out, please subscribe to my channel. You can also use the comment system to leave me a question or communicate with the other users. Thank you for listening. This is Coding for Chicks.